Principle number 3 tells us to have those who consume the output of the process not only participate in the process, but if possible, drive the process. It's a very subtle and in some cases a very powerful redesign principle. One instantiation of this principle is known as vendor-managed inventory control. In vendor-managed inventory control, the responsibility for keeping the stock, let's say in a supermarket or in any retail organization or in any manufacturing company for that matter, is left with the suppliers. In other words, instead of actors or the process workers in the warehouse having to figure out that we are low in stock with respect to a certain product, we are going to expose the information about our inventory to our suppliers, and we are going to leave the suppliers figure out when it's the best time to send us the products. So in that respect, we don't have to trigger the supplier and ask them to ship us more products of a given type. Instead, the supplier will figure out at what point is the best moment to do it so that we always maintain a certain required level of stock in our inventory for a given product. And this is very powerful because it's the supplier on the end who wants the output of the order to cash process, because what is the output of the order to cash process is the cash, right? That's what the supplier wants. So in vendor managed inventory control is the vendor who is going to be pushing us, pushing to the customer the products, and obviously the customer only needs to consume these products as required by their processes and then pay for the products they have consumed. A particular case of vendor managed inventory control is nowadays known as scan-based trading. In scan-based trading, the vendor will make available a container, for example, in the warehouse facilities, where workers of the customer organization can go and grab whatever materials they need. Whenever they open the container and take away a certain material, they just scan the material that has been taken away. There will be, for example, an RFID or a barcode that will allow them to scan the product, and this will record the fact that the customer has used a given material. And this information will be sent then to the supplier and will trigger a corresponding payment because, hey, we have purchased something by taking it off the container that the supplier provided to us. More generally, principle number 3 is telling us to always think about pushing work to the actor that has the incentive to do it. Let's look at this principle outside the field of product shipment processes. Let us illustrate principle 3 using an example of a claims handling process. In the assist process, whenever the client needs to make a repair, for example, to a car glass, they will first request a quote from an approved glass vendor. They will then make a claim including this quote to the insurer. The insurer will then check the insurance policy and authorize the client to make the repair, pay to the glass vendor, and then later the insurer will pay to the client. The problem with this process is that there is a lot of handovers happening between the client, the glass vendor, and the insurer. We can ask ourselves the question here, who consumes the output of this process? And we will see, if we examine it in details, that it is the glass vendor. The glass vendor is the one that ultimately wants to repair the glass and get paid for it. So we are going to redesign this process in such a way that the glass vendor is the one that drives the process of claiming for the insurance. How this will work is that the client will drop by the approved glass vendor. The glass vendor will put a claim on behalf of the client to the insurer, meaning that the insurer has to empower the glass vendor with the ability to make claims on behalf of customers who visit this approved glass vendor. And the insurer will then pay the approved glass vendor. So the client has to drop, get their car repaired, get it back, and the approved glass vendor will lodge the claim to the insurer on behalf of the customer and will receive the payment. We see that we have here many less handovers than what we had in the assist process.